today. So on our agenda today, if we'll go, I'm just going to do like a submission update because we talked about that on Tuesday. And then we're going to have a regular day today. We have notes and then an assignment. So we will jump in. For our submission update, I updated you guys that we were in a no bueno place from number 11 and number 12 assignments. We had some people turn them in, which is awesome. Super pumped to see that. And then we had most of us did the election math on Tuesday. So if you didn't do that yet, it's quick and easy. You can do it on Desmos. The link is in there. If you are missing one of these assignments, so if you're missing 11 or 12 or the election math, you have mandatory office hours on Friday. So let me go ahead and repeat that for the people in the back. If you are missing assignment 11, 12, or the election math, if you're missing any of these three things, you have mandatory office hours on Friday. You can get out of it by turning in the things that you're missing. So as long as you're not missing anything for quarter two, you can be excused from that. But if you are missing something, you do have office hours. I sent you an email. You can check your email. It's in there. So just one more time for people who are rolling in. If you are missing something here, right, either 11, 12, or election math, then you have office hours on Friday. So please, please, please make sure that you have turned in everything. I'm going to go ahead and send this attendance one more time. So cool. All right. So in order to help you so that you can potentially get out of office hours, or if you're struggling on today's assignment, you can drop by today from 3:30 to 4. I'm just like making my office hours longer pretty much all the time. So it's going to be more than that 10 minutes because I know some of us think that 10 minutes is lame. I do too. So my office hours will just always be a half hour from 3:30 to 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So drop by if you want some help. All right. We're going to jump in here. I am going to get ready for the notes here. If you would like to do the notes on video, you, as always, have the video option available to you on Canvas. If you would prefer to do them live action, you can stick around with me. I'm going to go ahead and open up breakout rooms that you can jump in between. So if you have done the update, hopefully you've done the Zoom update, it does allow you to choose the room that you go to. And you are going to be able to see all the different groups. If you would like to change your group, you can. That being said, it's going to pop up in the bottom. It says breakout rooms. So I'm going to open these up. If you would like to go to a quiet area or work with your team on the notes and then the assignment, you're welcome to jump there. And then if you need to come back, you can always come back. If you want to work with me, you'll just stick around with me. So those rooms are open if you wish. If you did not get assigned one, please let me know. Or if you're not able to jump in one yourself. Otherwise, if you're working with me, I'm going to go ahead and stop this screen share and jump into my iPad here. All right. Give me 1 second. It'd be helpful if I unmuted. All right, team. Hello. Good morning. Let me find your faces. Here they are. Cool. Okay. If I do maybe this. All right. Can you guys see that pretty much full screen? hopefully.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for coming off mute. My favorite thing ever. Sweet. I also see you in the chat. Let's do this super fast. Give me one moment, please. All right. We're going to do three. Yes, there is just a question on the screen. Thank you for your chat. We're going to do three thinking questions before we start taking notes. So you don't have to write this down. You already did, sorry. But the first question is, you can blow up the chat. What is one number that would make this true? 6 times a blank. So 6 times what number gives you 0? 0. Yeah, is there anything else that we could put in here? Anything else I could put in here? Come nothing. It has to be 0, right? 6 times 0 equals 0. That's it. That's the only number we can put in there. Cool. All right. Thinking question number 1. We got that done. Thinking question number 2. What is one number that would make this true? Blank times 0 equals 0. 0 would work here. What other numbers? 1 would work there. What else? 9 could work there. 100 could work there. Kimberly says any number could work there. Sebastian says any number could work there. 9, 0, 8, 7, 6, 4 could work there. 190 could work there, right? Amira says any number could work there, right? Maya says, what is that? 1,000,000, 10 million could work there. Anything could work there, right? Anything could work there. So any number times 0 equals 0. Cool. You guys are doing a great job. All right. So now this one might be a little more tricky. There are 2 blanks on this one. What are 2 numbers? You have to message 2 numbers that could make this true. Blank times blank equals 0. Blank times blank equals 0. I've got Sebastian saying 2 times 0. Gabby saying like a big old number times 0. Roxana's got 100 and 0. Moses says 0 and any number. 100 and 0, 8 and 0, a million times 0. Yeah, right? 0 times 0. I love that answer. So we could have like really anything. Any number as long as one of them is a 0. You could do 0 and 10, or you could do 10 and 0. It doesn't matter, right? You don't need to write this down. These are just our thinking questions. So what we know is that if one of the numbers is 0, then the answer will be 0. So when we start to think about this with our problems, right, you might have remembered that last week and the week before, we needed to make sure that they were equal to 0 before we could solve them. And the reason why is because we want to make sure that one of the things could be equal to 0. So I'll show you what I mean here. So the 0 product property, right, you can go ahead and write down these 3 words. The 0 product property, we're going to start taking our notes now. Notes 13 if you're numbering them. 0 product property says if A times B equals 0, if A times B equals 0, then A must be equal to 0 or B must be equal to 0. That's like the super mathy way of saying exactly what we just said, which is that in order to make 0, in order to make it equal 0, then it has to be, one of them has to be 0. Okay, so we don't know which one has to be 0, but one of them has to be 0. All right. So if we can get it into factored form, right? So if we can take our quadratic equation and we can turn it into factored form, then we can find both of the solutions by setting them equal to 0. So here's what I mean. If we have something like this, I'm going to give you a second to write this down. You want to write down this portion right here. Go ahead and write that down. So if it is equal to 0 and it's in these parentheses version, right? You might remember that we were starting with something like x squared plus maybe minus 6x minus 40 equals 0, right? And maybe we turned it into this format, right? So once it's in factored form, you don't need to write that other portion down. Once it's in factored form, what we can do is we know either this has to be 0 or this has to be 0, right? One of those two has to be 0. So we could say, okay, either x plus 4 must be 0 or x minus 10 must be 0. One of the two. Either the first one must be 0 or the second one must be 0 because it equals 0 at the end. Maybe both of them are 0. That's okay too. So we would say, okay, I'm going to solve them really fast. I'm going to say subtract 4 on both sides. I'm going to say x is equal to -4, or I'm going to add 10 on both sides. X is equal to 10. So those are my two possible solutions for this problem. That's how we can find our two solutions to a quadratic. Okay. So those ones are like the kind of easy ones. Those are the ones that you normally, my guess is that you normally would just flip them in your head, right? Normally would just flip them in your head. If you would like to, or if you have to, there are also harder problems, but you're going to do the exact same thing. If you see that something times something equals 0, that means either this equals 0 or this equals 0. So we could write down 2x plus 5 must be equal to 0, or 4x minus 12 must be equal to 0. So you can go ahead and solve them by subtracting 5 on both sides of this first one. 2x equals -5. Divide by 2. X equals -5 divided by 2. I could write -2.5. Personally, I'm just going to leave it in its fraction form, -5 over 2. Right? Or I'm going to add 12 on both sides. 4x equals 12. Divide by 4. I get x equals 3. Just like that. Nice. Gap. All right. So if it's already in its factored form, it's very easy to complete these problems, right? You just set them equal to 0 and you solve. So that's what you're going to see on the first part of your assignment today. So for part 1 of your assignment, I know there looks like there's a lot on this page, but for part 1 of your assignment, you're just going to solve the problems that look like this, right? So you're going to say, okay, I'm going to subtract 6. I get x equals, well, okay, I shouldn't do that. I could say like, okay, x plus 6 equals 0. So subtract 6 on both sides. X equals -6. I'm going to put -6 there, right? I know x minus 3 equals 0. I'm going to add 3 on both sides. So x equals 3. So x equals 3. That would be the first one done there, right? So when you go to your assignment today, you do have an IXL option if you prefer IXL, but I'd say probably the paper is easier. And you're going to either do all of them, 9 of them, or 6 of them, depending on what level assignment you are doing. Okay, so that's part 1. Part 1 should not take you more than 5 minutes, right? So 5 minutes maximum on part 1. If it's taking you longer, please come to off that so we can talk. All right, so we have 3 examples here for how to solve them like from the beginning, right? So I have example 1, example 2, and example 3. So if you're thinking about where to write them on your paper, that is there. All right, so for example 1, I'm going to give you a second. If you're writing on paper, go ahead and write this down right here. Good question. You can do both options if you want, up to you. If you want to do option 1 and option 2 on part 1, that's totally fine. I said 5 minutes, if it takes you longer than 10 minutes, I want you to stop, email me, and tell me it took you longer than 10 minutes, because it really shouldn't. Awesome. Thank you for those questions in the chat. All right. So step number one. They're going to be the same steps all day today. So if you want to write them down, you can. Step number one is make sure it equals 0. Right? So make sure at somewhere in the problem it says equals 0. Cool. Step 1 is done for us. Right? Step 1, done. Step 2. Step 2 says factor using GCF, the X factor, or the box. Right? So factor using one of those methods that we learned last week. So what I mean from this one is there's 1, 2, 3. Is there a GCF here? Is there a number that we could take out? A number or a letter that we could take out? No, there's nothing in common, right? This one has X, X, and no X there. And then this one has 6 and 5 and 1 here. So there's nothing we can take out. Cool. So we're going to need to use the X factor. What numbers multiply to get 5 and add to get 6? What are two numbers that multiply to get 5 and add to get 6? Yeah, I'm seeing 5 and 1. 5 and 1, perfect. Do either of them need to be negative?
No.
No, they don't, because they're both going to be positive. So positive 5 times positive 1 equals 5, and 5 plus 1 equals 6. Thank you, Gabby, for coming up to me. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and write this in factored form, which is x plus 5, x plus 1 is still equal to 0. And that is step 2. Factoring is step 2. Step 3 is to set each factor equal to 0. Set it equal to 0. So do that first, what we just learned in the last part. So x plus 5 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. That is set each factor equal to 0. So done. And then the last step, step 4, is to solve for the solution. Solve for the solution. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 5 on both sides. It's going to give me x equals negative 5. Subtract 1 on both sides. X equals negative 1. So x equals 5, or negative 5, and x equals negative 1. That is step 4, and we are done. This is our answer, our answers for this problem. If you remember back when we were like, back when we were graphing them, this means that we would have a graph that looks like this, and it has a solution at x equals negative 5, and it has a solution at x equals negative 1. Those are my two solutions for my parabola. Yes, I can. So I want to go over the 4 steps here. First step, making sure that it equals to 0. I'm just going to make sure that my problem equals 0. If it doesn't, I'm going to move things around. Step 2 was to factor it using the X factor, right? This number always going to be our multiply number. This number always going to be our add number. The two numbers that multiply to get 5 and add to get 6 will be 5 and 1. So I would write them in their factored form like this, right? That is step 2. Step 3 was to set each factor equal to 0. So that was my blue step here, where I made both factors, both of the things that were in the parentheses, I set them equal to 0. So I know one of them has to be equal to 0. And then the last one is to solve for the solution. So that was what I did in green right here. In green right here. All right. Thank you for those questions. We're going to jump to example number 2. If you're writing down your problems, go ahead and make sure that you have this problem written down. This problem written down. All right. Can someone tell me what the first step is? What's the first step?
Make it equal to 0.
Make it equal to 0. Absolutely. Thank you, Roxana. So the first step is I want to set it equal to 0. So I could move the x squared to the left side, or I could move the 2x to the right side. Does anyone have an opinion on which one? It doesn't really matter. No, you could do it either way. Personally, I want to make sure that x squared is going to stay positive. And if I move it to the other side, it's going to be negative. So I'm going to, instead of moving the x squared, I'm going to go ahead and take that 2x and move it to the other side. It's not impossible to do it in another way, like with a negative. It just makes things more complicated. And I don't need negative things in my life. So I'm going to try to keep them as positive as possible. So 0 equals, are x squared and 2x, are they like terms? Can I combine them into one? Or do I have to leave them separate? Zephyr, I see your head shaking, thank you. No, I want to leave them separate. They are not like terms. We have x squared and we have x. All right. So that was step number 1. Thank you, Roxana, for reading that. Can someone read step 2 or tell me what step 2 is? What should they do next?
Factor using GCF, X, or box.
Yes. So we're going to factor using GCF, X factor, or box. Thanks, Zephyr, for reading that. So we don't have 3 here, so I don't want to do this guy. I want to see if there's a GCF. Is there a GCF here? Is there something that's in common between x squared and 2x?
The X.
The x, yeah, the x. We can take out 1x out of each of these. Yeah, thanks, Wendy, in the chat. So I'm going to take out that x here, and that's going to leave me with x minus 2, like that. X minus 2. Cool. All right, so I have factored because I'm in parentheses now, so I know that I have factored it. Can someone read step 3, please?
Set each factor to 0
Yes,
equal to 0.
Yes, perfect, thank you. And I see you typing it there, Emiliano, in the chat, amazing. I got both of you. Thank you, Wendy, for coming off mute. All right, so we're setting each factor equal to 0. That's step 3. So anything that is multiplied is a factor. So that means x by itself is going to be a factor. X equals 0. Oh, that was easy. And also x minus 2 equals 0, also a factor, right? So we're going to set both of those equal to 0. So I'm done with my third step here. And my last step, someone come off mute and talk to us about our last step.
Solve for the solution.
Solve for the solutions. Thanks, Sebastian. All right, so we're going to solve for the solution. So x equals 0, woo, already a solution. X equals 0. And then the second solution, I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite. I see minus 2, so I'm going to go ahead. Whoa. I see minus 2, so I'm going to go ahead and add 2. So I get x equals 2. So my 2 solutions here would be 0 and 2. 0 and 2. So I'm going to go ahead. What this would look like on a graph would be like this. It would have an x equals 0 and an x equals 2. So we can see we're learning 2 separate methods. Last week we learned about graphing to help us solve, and this week we're learning about factoring to help us solve. Right? But they should give us the exact same answers. Cool. All right. Any questions about number 2? No questions? Sweet. All right. All right, let's do one final example, example 3 here. Go ahead and write this down. Write this down right here. All right. Can someone, actually, I'm going to do the steps this time and someone can tell me what to do. So the first step, make sure it equals to 0. So first step, set equal to 0. Can someone tell me what I should do in order to set this equal to 0?
Subtract negative, add -6 to both sides. Or add positive 6 to both sides.
Yes, good correction, Antoine. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Antoine, am I going to add it to the 2, to the 8, or do I just put it on the end?
Just put it on the end because it doesn't have an X.
Yes, exactly. It's not a like term. It doesn't have that X. Thank you. So we have 2x squared plus 8x plus 6 equals 0 now. Thank you, Antoine. All right. My second step is to factor. And I could use GCF or I might use the X factor. GCF or the X factor. Do I have a GCF? Can someone tell me if I have a GCF?
Yes.
Yes, you have the GCF. Of
You
2.
could do 2.
Yes, I could do 2. I could do 2, yeah. I'm going to divide by 2 on all of these. Divide by 2 on each of these. Perfect. Zephyr and Roxana, thanks for helping me out. And then when I take out the 2, Zephyr, can you tell me what would be left over if I take out the 2?
It's going to be 2x plus 4x plus 3.
4x plus 3, I agree with. Can you repeat what would be left if I had 2x divided by 2? 2x squared.
Wouldn't it be 2x?
It's not going to be 2x, it's going to be x squared.
I meant
because
x, my bad. X squared, my bad.
No, yeah, you're right. You just had it backwards. Perfect. Thank you. All right. So now still equals to 0. And it is in parentheses, but it's not in enough parentheses. So we actually have another iteration, another time that we need to go through and do step 2 because it's not yet in parentheses like this, right? We want it to be in parentheses like that. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and use the X factor. Don't forget to bring down your 2. All right. What number am I going to multiply to get?
4.
4 is going to be my add number.
Will it be the 1?
I mean 3.
Not the 1. The 1's going to chill over here. 1 times 3, I guess I could do. But the 3 is going to be my multiply number. So the way I remember this is it's always, you did great, no problem. It's always AM, like AM, PM. AM, PM is my favorite coffee to get when we are at school, right? Like down the street at the gas station because it's 99 cents and it's awesome. So I always remember AM. It always goes in that order. So the first one is your add number, A, and your second one is your multiply number, M. AM, PM. Woohoo. Okay, so I'm going to add to get 4 and multiply to get 3. Add to get 4, multiply to get 3. What are my 2 numbers? Adding to get
3 and 1.
3.
3 and 1. Yes, 3 and 1. Awesome. So I'm going to write x plus 1, x plus 3, just like that. Amazing. X plus 1, x plus 3. Okay. All right. Step 3 is to set factors equal to 0. So in this case, I have 3 factors, 3 things. I have 2 equals 0. Wait, what? That's weird. X plus 1 equals 0. And x plus 3 equals 0. I have 3 factors because I broke it into 3 pieces. And then finally, I'm going to solve for my solutions. That is step 4, solving for my solutions. So does x equal 0? right here. Does x equal 0? No, sorry. Does take it back. Rewind. Okay. Does 2 equal 0? Does 2 equal 0? Emiliano, 2 equals 0? Like 2 things equal 0 things? No, right? 2 things doesn't equal 0 things. So this is not a solution. That's like a fake solution, right? That's not a thing. It doesn't equal 0. So if you ever get just a number equals 0, like a number does not equal 0, right? That would break down all of math. So we don't want that. Yes, joking. I'm glad you were joking. All right, so then I'm going to solve my other ones. Somebody want to come off mute and talk to us about how to solve these ones?
You subtract 1 from the other side.
Subtract 1 from the other side. Zephyr, you can do the next one. And so what do I get, Roxana?
You get x minus -1.
X equals -1. Yes.
X equals -1.
Perfect. And then Zephyr, can you do the other one?
You get a -3 on both sides.
-3 on both sides. And I get?
And then you're gonna get x equals -3.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you. Awesome. So those are my 2 solutions. So if I was going to graph it, I'd have a solution at -1, a solution at -3, and my line would go through them like that. Okay. All right. These were our 3 examples for today. Let me show you what your homework is going to look like. Leave this here for just a second. I'll also come back to it. What your homework is going to look like is a few of those problems from the beginning where they were already factored for you. And then a few of these problems like examples 1 through 3, where you're actually factoring and then solving. So your assignment will look like this. You're going to put your picture of your notes here. You're going to spend, remember, no more than 10 minutes. If it takes longer than 10 minutes, you're texting me to tell me, right? No longer than 10 minutes on part 1. Remember that you're doing these ones depending on what level you're at. If you want to do option 2, you can do option 2 instead, or at the same time. And then part 2 looks a little bit different. It looks like this. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to solve each problem in column 1. So you're going to solve this problem. Let's say that your answers were 10 and 2. I don't know what your answers are. You're going to write 10 and 2 in the box like that. 10 and 2. So you're going to type the solutions in column 2. Step 3 is to follow the directions in column 1. So in column 3. So it says, what is the sum of the solutions? So sum means addition. So you're going to add 10 plus 2, which makes 12. And then you can find your green box answers are going to be over here. So 12 is what I'm looking for. Wow. Oh, well, 12 is not the answer. Remember, I just made up those numbers. So you would be able to find 12 here, right? 12 is not your answer. Let's do this one so that way I don't actually confuse all of you. Here we go. So we need to factor it. What, remember AM, PM? So multiplies to get 5, adds to get 6. I think we already actually did this one, 5 and 1. Yeah, thank you. 5 and 1, thanks, Gab. So we have n plus 5, n plus 1. I'm going to have here n plus 5 could be equal to 0, or n plus 1 could be equal to 0. Subtracting 5 on both sides, I get n equals -5. Subtracting 1 on each side, n equals -1, like that. So -5 and -1 would be what goes in these boxes. -5 and -1. Remember, sum is addition. So I'm adding -5 plus -1. I would get -6. -6 like that. And then I would go looking for -6. I see it right here. So I'm going to cross it out. Okay. This would be how you work on the assignment for today. If you're honors, you're doing 12 of them. On track, you're doing 9. Star, you're doing 6. Right, so check that guy. And then your checkpoint today is your last piece. I think it has 3 questions, maybe 4. So should be a little bit less. If you want to, there is extra credit at the bottom. It's ACT. It's related to what we were working on today. Are there any questions about the assignment 13? No questions about assignment 13. All right. I'm going to go back to that last section of the notes so you can write those down if you need to. If you don't have any questions, then you are free to go. I'll let you go 2 whole minutes early. Have a great day today. If you get stuck, you have from 3:30 to 4, I'll be live on Zoom. Otherwise, you can text me anytime. Okay. Happy to help you. Hope you guys have an amazing day. And I will see you guys later. Bye, guys. Bye. Thanks for your help.
Bye, Miss.
Bye. Sending merits to all of my people in the chat as well as who came off mute today. So thank you so much for your help. Adios. Have a great day. Bye. Bye.
Bye, Miss.
Bye. Bye. Adios. Goodbye.